4020.
Toby says, good idea. Super League should separate from the RFL and get a CEO in to run the Super League. That's remember that? Remember, where's Robert Elson these days? What's he doing? What's he up to?
It's not about the personnel. I mean, clearly you want the right personnel.
Yeah.
You want personnel that can
After
bring people
worldwide
together
stage.
rather than divide them. It's actually about the amount of money you've got to spend as a governing body, what you can spend it on, and what personnel you can get for the money that you're prepared to pay. So the issue isn't really about now. It's about if the NRL are coming in and financing things, what are they paying for? What expertise are they bringing? How do they safeguard the money that they're prepared to invest in this competition? Because at the moment you'd look at it from afar and go, bit of a basket case, probably not going to, unless
you
I can put my guys in.
Invest. Yeah.
You want to invest because you've got the genesis of something here that's worth investing in, both from the international game and some of the young players that are playing over here at the moment, and the standard of the product, of which, when we do get round to talking about games like Hull KR and Saints and Holland Lee, you've got something that is immensely marketable. So I can see why they would want to come in. They want to bring the opening game of the season or the state of origin over here, but they're going to have people in place that can look after their investment, because the way it looks at the moment, you would not invest in the...
And that's it. You don't get investment for nothing in return.
No,
so
absolutely.
you have to then
you don't just go, here's a bucket of money,
what does the NRL take? So they take some of the cream of the crop for the youngsters. They take some of the TV revenue that they hopefully can... But if you get if the pie becomes bigger...
Well,
in terms of that revenue share that the club gets, then that's great.
Or do you set up the type of commission that they've got in the NRL, where the clubs are guaranteed a much larger share of money but not voting rights? They're partners in a commission, but they don't have overall control of it.
The money's got to come from somewhere, though, hasn't it, to get them...
That's because Peter V'landys is the nearest we've got to a benevolent dictator. So he's not going to, or his commission is not going to put a load of money into here if we're going to behave like 30-odd clubs sat round a table fighting over the crust of a pie.
Doesn't work and hasn't worked since 1895. But
so is all that's happening at the moment raising the ground for this new edifice to be built that is going to have NRL expertise and money behind?
The only concern I would have is that's the top end of the game. What happens to the rest of the game?
And that is the issue.
Championship, League One, women's game, whatever it is.
Well, there might have to be, in the first instance, sufficient money to trickle down, but it won't be finite. It won't be every year. It'll be like you've got 5 years, and after that you stand on your own 2 feet.
I feel like I should say trickle down economics doesn't work, because that's what people always say on the news. I don't know what it means. I didn't do economics.
I did, and I still don't know.
Andrew says, evening all, is it going to be Warrington's year, or is there more chance of the NRL taking over Super League? To which Kevin has also said, I don't understand this NRL money. What are the NRL going to want for them to put their money in, and what's in it for them? I mean, here's the interesting thing, isn't it? Is when you look at the NRL table, and you've got St George Illawarra, West Tigers, Manly kind of Northern Eagles. What happens when Peter V'landys says he rings up not St Helens, because they would never measure them. He rings up Castleford, whoever runs Castleford these. They say, "Hello, Castleford. Yeah, we think we don't really need 2 teams in the Wakefield district." What do you mean? Like you've got loads of teams in Sydney. Sydney's quite bigger than Wakefield. Bye. And then they have to play at the DIY Kitchen Stadium and call themselves Wakefield something.
I think we're looking to...
Are we scared? Am I scaremongering?
Yeah. I mean, what they're buying is
the
need to have a strong Northern Hemisphere rugby league, because I think we've said it before, they're not quite at saturation point, but there isn't a lot more they can do in the Southern Hemisphere Pacific region that they're not already doing. They're bringing a PNG team in, they're probably going to have a second team in New Zealand. New Zealand are making a bid to take a state of origin game there. They've almost done about as well as they can do. When you look at the figures that they've just announced for 2024, the turnovers are at a high, spectators are at a high, participation is at a high. First time ever they've had over 1 million people playing rugby league. It's a fantastic job that they've done. 4 years running that they've made huge profits. They've bought hotels. What they've done is cemented their place as arguably the number 1 sport. There'll be arguments from the AFL about they're bigger in certain areas, and that may be so. But what That then the NRL, ARLC have then got to say, right, well, what have we got that our competitors don't, that we can get further expansion and more ticket sales, more revenue, more shirt sales, more TV eyes on us, more betting revenue, whatever it might be. And they go, well, we've got to have games that we can take all around the world, so we've got to have strong places in the Northern Hemisphere we can take them. We've got to have an international game, and they've been absolutely clear that they want this Ashes test to come here to regenerate us, not because they're going to make money on it. The likelihood is they're going to slightly lose money on it, but they're not bothered because an Ashes test here puts the game here on a sounder footing in terms of eyes on it. They want to sell shirts. They want to appeal to global sponsors. They can't do any of that unless we're strong. And in a way, it goes back to the formation of Super League, which started as a war between two broadcast magnates in Australia. But one of them decided the way we can win this is to sign up over here. You know, we weren't part of that dream. You know, we had, you know, there was talk of a commission that said we should move to summer, but it wasn't really on the table. We were slowly in our latest phase of losing money, and then they came along with the golden wheelbarrow. But what they wanted was they wanted to sign up this side of the world so that they'd win the battle over there. It's a little bit like that. So I can see what they would want out of it. I could see why. I think they're genuine. And I think they can see that some of the best players in the world, they'd like playing in their competition. And we might have some of them.
I think there's appetite in the clubs clearly for change.
And money. Because
money.
all of the top clubs have got benevolent owners who, the higher you go up, are putting more and more money in. So the average amount of money that's being put in across the Super League owners is £1.5 million. That's a lot of money. You know, somebody at some point needs to say, that's fine, but you've asked me for that £1.5 million 5 seasons running. When am I actually going to get a return on that investment? And you're not, unless somebody comes in and buys you out, pays you some of that money back, but says in return for that, I'm telling you what the competition looks like. The other thing is those clubs may want that competition to look like that because it gives them opportunity. Like Wigan and Warrington earned more than just money out of playing in Las Vegas. The eyes on them, the awareness, the companies that they could speak to, they didn't do that within the realms of that was a Super League initiative or Rugby League commercial initiative. They arranged it. They're talking about taking a game to Dublin next year because they got so much attraction out of going to Las Vegas. They were absolutely staunch, particularly Chris Radlinski, in saying this will only succeed if other teams go next year. They're not saying we had a great time. We you know, we'll make it Warrington's home fixture next year, but we'll go again and we'll keep all the additional revenue. They're saying no, we've set that up so 2 other teams can go and they can work out how they can make money out. I think there's a genuine feeling for change that isn't just about preserving things as they are. I think if there is change to the level that we're now looking at, the game might look slightly different.
If only we were as a country, that is the United Kingdom, were as politically important as Papua New Guinea for Australia, then we could convince their government to give us loads of money. Because the soft power thing in sport is going to become... We've seen with Saudi Arabia, with golf, with professional wrestling, which is not sport, but you know what I mean, UFC, bringing all the big footballers over there. They've got the Club World Cup coming up. But now they're getting involved in boxing. With our friends at TKO, who are part of IMG, are part of TKO. And the traditional boxing promoters ain't going to like it because they've got unlimited... I don't know where all the money's from. They've got unlimited money. I don't understand it. I don't understand this geopolitical thing. But... at least you haven't. You know, they've not discovered us yet. So then we'll have to have really difficult conversations about sport washing.
But I think we will have to have those conversations because, again, we've said it on a number of occasions on this podcast. You're either global or local. Local, you're at a sort of semi-professional level, and you can't expect the big television bucks. You'll survive. Global, if Doha ring up and say it's £1 million for the World Club Challenge, that's where you go and play the World Club Challenge.
Elsewhere, I think before we get on to actual rugby, well, here is actual rugby. Abigail's happy because Rochdale are top of League One.
Yeah.
So they're top of League One.
Nilled another opponent
Yeah,
as
they've had
well.
a good start to the season.
Now we're in because it's Challenge Cup week, so we all get to go. Oh, we enjoyed Super League. All those games on the telly, can't keep up with them now. There's only 2 games to watch. The Brisbane Broncos, Phil. What was that all about? They're the world's best team now. Well, not quite, but getting there.
Well, with Michael Maguire as coach, playing an expansive brand of rugby.
That's not Wigan.
It's only one game. With
Sydney Roosters are rubbish.
with
And
the
signed
oldest-
Jared Warrea-Hargreaves again.
the oldest half-back pairing as well.
Yeah. Is Nathan Cleary still the best rugby player in the world?
Yeah,
That's
has
a week,
he
yeah.
come over here yet?
No, not yet. But that French fella's done his knee, hasn't he? So they can't talk about him for a while. So is that all? Is that the news? I think that is, isn't it? I don't think there's any.
Sally Lindsay resigned as well, but I don't know when that was. Whether that was the week before, or whether that was.
It was still after the last podcast.
There's been too many. But it was interesting reading her notes around. To look, she's sort of referencing her quotes around United, being united, and that's what the sport needs to be. And I think it does need to be that way, but it seems to me that there's change in the air.
The problem with being united is that we never have been, because when we've been united for a certain amount of time, somebody gets upset with the fact that they haven't got the share that they want, so they break away. So you get Super League and the RFL, and that costs £5 million, and then we go through this long process of reuniting, and then now how long have we been reunited since Rugby League commercial?
Yeah.
So we now want to
About
break
3
away
years.
again. So
It's like the the reunification of the RFL and Barla, wasn't it? But Barla still exists actually.
Yeah, Germany
maybe
did-
it goes back to 1895, doesn't it? As a
Yeah.
sport, that it's sort of almost ingrained in the culture of the sport that if you don't like something, you rip it
we
up.
fall out.
Yeah, it's like political parties. They want to be in power, but actually, the sections who are very much of one part of the political party, they want to be in power, but under their terms. So but they'd rather see the other ones in charge, just so that if they can't do it,
You
their
could
way.
understand if we were rolling in the kind of riches that the ARLC were, and we weren't quite happy with the distribution, and some people going to the table and saying, "You've earned all this money because we've provided it at the top end of the game, so we want more of it." And you've seen plenty of occasions in sports administration where they're fighting over something. We're fighting over nothing. We don't.
Bald
there's
men
there's
fighting
nothing in
over
the
a comb.
larder.
I think it's one or the other, though, isn't it? That it's a power grab in a rich organisation, or it's you flip it on its head, and it's the other way around, isn't it? That I think they're getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And you point to the Vegas thing where the clubs organise it themselves and say, "Well, hang on a minute, what's the governing body's purpose if we're doing this?"
Well, and also if it it was in January's 4020, so it must be true. If Simon Moran is the entrepreneur who has ensured that the test series comes over here rather than stays in Australia, that's an initiative that's come effectively from within the clubs.
You mentioned that before.
Have I mentioned that before?
Simon Moran getting involved more in because he's an actual promoter of things. I think you mentioned getting some of his acts involved, haven't you? But it does seem a bit obvious to get an actual promoter of things to try and promote something.
Yeah. And
An event promoter.
And as
He's one of the industry leading experts, isn't
as
he?
Peter Volandis said, and will be quoted in the new 4020, having said it out on Friday, along with a lot of other stuff, some of which you may never read elsewhere.
That's my column, Phil's talking
When
about.
Simon Moran rings you up, you listen.